People that have to dance to the Michael Jackson Thriller movie. Hi, hi, Matt Miller. How are you?
Well, I'm a little brokenhearted this morning. We're gonna have to break up. I didn't know you were such a Star Wars hater.
Listen, nerd. I am not the drone you're looking for. Okay. Also, we found out fun facts about Matt Miller. You were born in Ojai and you moved to Santa Cruz. What a crunchy granola hippie you are. Good Lord.
Yeah, followed by Amarillo, Texas, to just beat all the crunchy granola hippie right out of me.
Exactly.
We were just talking to Dr. Redlener, and I loved your response to Doug Emhoff tweeted, what motivated you to get vaccinated? And you just tweeted back, I can't spend another day at home with my children. I think of you as this sweet-faced young father, and then I remember you when the COVID lockdown started. You were like, we started with all these great parenting ideas, and then it became take this bag of crackers and go in the basement with this iPad and don't come back till dinner.
Yeah, basically. Look,
Are you having a hard lockdown, Matt? Is that?
Yeah, it's hard. Look, we have spent more time with our children than ever before, and parts of that have been great. But anyone that tells you it's not, great combined with awful is lying. That was funny. There were a lot of people that responded to that tweet with like, "Well, you're just not a very good parent. And how can you say that?" And I was like, go to hell. What have you been doing with very long?
Oh, get real.
No, thank you. Yeah.
So get real, people. Okay.
Right.
I can imagine they're in mid-sentence. You're like, Daddy's got to go talk about Rudy Giuliani going to jail. I got to go. I'd rather.
Right. Exactly.
Being on TV is your break from. Which you tweeted. Time will tell whether they have enough to get Rudy or not. But the decision by the Trump DOJ not to go forward with this step over the objection of career attorneys looks even sketchier now. Yeah, can we talk about Bill Barr and what trouble he may be in or not? And this is your purview as a former DOJ spokesperson. So explain to us what's happening. They're asking the DOJ to release this memo. Explain so if people don't know all the ins and outs of this.
Yeah, so what happened, remember back, take your mind back in the Wayback Machine to March of 2018 when Barr gets the Mueller report, secret report given just to him and other senior officials at DOJ, not to the public. And in 2 days releases his letter saying, I reviewed the report and there's no collusion and not enough for obstruction. It's all over and I'll give it to you in a month or so. And totally misleads the public about what he's found, and in doing so says, in part, in deciding that I'm not going to recommend or bring obstruction of justice charges against the president, I consulted with the Office of Legal Counsel, and so there's this memo that someone files a FOIA request for and eventually goes to court to get. That is written by the head of the Office of Legal Counsel, basically outlining the legal justification, and the Justice Department has tried to keep parts of this memo under wraps. And what the judge this week found is that DOJ basically lied to the court. And it's almost like, I think of this like a nesting doll of lies. You have this original lie by Barr about what's in the report, and then you have the Justice Department in trying to keep this memo that you use secret, lying about both the nature of the report and the contents of it, like two separate lies to the court.
Bill Barr sits on a throne. He sits on a throne of lies, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's all that you remember. Like once you tell one lie, you start telling other lies to cover it up. It's lie after lie after lie.
Yeah.
You sit on a throne of lies.
Okay, but I hate to say this, but so it's not illegal to lie to the public, but it is a crime to lie to Congress and to the court, correct? So tell us.
Yeah. Well, so look, absolutely. But look, lying to Congress, I think if you go back and look what he said to Congress, he said he consulted with the Office of Legal Counsel. Nothing that came out this week undermines that fact. You can consult with the Office of Legal Counsel orally. He got the final memo afterwards, so I think proving that he lied to Congress is impossible. The person that actually told the court something that may not have been true wasn't Barr. It's a career employee at the Justice Department. And we're going to have to see when we, assuming we see this full memo and we can look at how he characterized it versus what Judge Jackson is now saying, we're going to have to look at it to see whether he has any jeopardy. My guess he was pretty careful and he'll have an argument. It gets back to all this. The problem with all of these, the way that people in public office lie is most of them are careful liars, right? Yeah. It's like you're not going to come out and say something that you can flat out prove is wrong, or and the criminal statutes require that you intended to lie. They lie in a way that can never be proven as a criminal act, and that's one of the deeply frustrating things about all of this.
Yeah, well, I'll say, give me 14. Chairman Schiff on this, just wanted to get your take. Here he is.
Bill Barr really turned the Justice Department into the president's private law firm. He was willing to deceive the country in the president's service. He was willing to shield those who protected the president from criminal liability, like Mike Flynn, like Roger Stone. He was willing to intercede to help reduce sentences for the president's acolytes. And he was willing to use the department as not only just as a shield to protect the president, but as a sword to go after his enemies. And I don't think anyone did more damage to the rule of law, apart from the president himself, than Bill Barr.
Does it? Just to me, isn't that why you have to prosecute not just Trump, but Barr? Because of the rule of law. Because, I mean, I know people point to Nixon's attorney general went to jail, but it took time. I mean, I just can't believe he can get away with all of that, the degree to which he engaged. Isn't it obstruction of justice that he, whatever he did with these 10 counts of obstruction of justice against Donald Trump, isn't that in itself obstructing justice?
Sadly, no. Look, he has the right as the attorney general to decide what to do about that case. And if he wants to kill it, it's his legal right to do so. It's not a crime. Look, I think the thing that's so frustrating about all of this is it feels like there is no mechanism for accountability for any of these Trumpies who engaged in corrupt behavior. And that's in a lot of cases, that's basically true. Because I think what's changed is like, there's sort of levels of accountability. The highest level of accountability is you committed a crime, you get prosecuted, you go to jail. But there's a very high bar for that. And most of the things that people do in government that are deeply corrupt and scandalous don't rise to that level, or don't rise to the level that you could prove it beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury. What the problem is, the backup to that has always been disgrace and public shaming, and that has been the accountability measure. Think of Alberto Gonzales, who politicized the Justice Department in the Trump administration, in the Bush administration.
Right.
Didn't commit a criminal act, but lost his job, had to resign, was completely disgraced, couldn't find a job afterwards in the private sector. Everyone thought he was a joke, and that doesn't happen anymore because the country has been so bifurcated that you can walk away as a complete, non-prosecutable crook who corrupted your office, abused the public trust. Maybe you didn't commit a crime that the government can prove, and you walk away with no accountability in the sense that we used to have accountability because there was some public shaming, because there's this half of the country.
They have no shame.
That thinks what you did is fine. And it's like a societal breakdown that is hurting our ability to police misconduct.
Yeah. Could you please give me some of the legal drones that I'm looking for? Just give me some good news. Rudy Giuliani.
Droids.
Whatever, nerd. Rudy Giuliani. I can't. I refuse to believe that they're all going to get away with all of this. I mean, first of all, Donald Trump is in, how many jurisdictions is he in trouble? SDNY, Georgia, the Capitol riots, this mall. I can't imagine they're not going to prosecute him for these 10 counts of obstruction of justice. First of all these stories end up being connected starting with Giuliani and all the way through, right? Talk to us. Let's focus on Giuliani for a minute. What's your take on what's happening with him and what's going to happen?
Look, he obviously has massive legal exposure. For the Southern District of New York to convince a judge to give them a warrant to search a lawyer's home, it's a high burden of proof. And so I think he's got real exposure. There's one piece I'm waiting to see. I think there's one missing piece of the puzzle right now for the exposure we know he faces. Like everything we see is like the search warrant was about Farah, serving as a foreign as a foreign agent without having registered. The piece that I think is missing so far, we haven't seen the evidence that he was getting paid by one of these Ukrainian oligarchs, and I think we're going to need to see that. I won't be shocked if we do see it, because we know he's been desperate for money. He's been broke, can't pay for it. He reduced his entourage. I don't know if you saw the story this morning. I didn't know Rudy had an entourage. So like, I think we need to see still that he took some money from someone in Ukraine, and I won't be surprised if we do, or DOJ is going after some other crime that we don't know about yet. Fraud, tax avoidance, something of that nature that's not public knowledge.
Yeah. What about Matt Gaetz? What is going on with that? Do you think?
He's toast. He's completely toast. I mean,
it's
like,
one of the legal droids I was looking for. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, he's toast. I mean, look at this. You have an obvious financial trail, right? He's Venmoing money to this scumbag Greenberg, who was then turning around and Venmoing the money to these, at least in one case, a girl, someone who was
so
underage,
you're saying legally not smart?
Tuition.
Not smart?
Yeah,
okay.
Legally not smart. Yeah. Oh, and then did you see the story? Greenberg wrote out what he did in a message to Roger Stone, put it all on paper.
Yeah.
And now I can't. And plus, Greenberg is either already cooperating or will be cooperating soon. I think Gaetz is done. And the thing I'll tell you about Gaetz, someone like that, when DOJ gets interested in a public official, it's true for other high-profile people, but especially public officials, and they start flipping over rocks and looking at what's scurrying around, you usually find more than one icky thing under that rock.
Yeah.
My guess is at the end of this, we're going to see more than just I shouldn't say just the sex of the minor. It's human trafficking is a massive crime, but it would be more than that one charge. You see other charges as well.
Yeah. Is Trump ever going to see justice on any of these fronts? I mean,
I will say, I think the case he ought to be worried most about, the investigation he ought to be worried most about, is the investigation by the Manhattan District Attorney. I have always thought the way to get Trump is going to be something completely vanilla, something that doesn't require, that doesn't require some difficult showing of intent. Like all the obstruction of justice charges, there's an explanation where he could say, "Oh, I'm using my constitutional powers as president," and they're thorny legal issues, and you're going to have to rely. Let's say you indict, you're going to have to rely on the Supreme Court agreeing with your interpretation of the law, and I'm not going to bet the case on this Supreme Court agreeing with that. I think you need to get Trump. It has to be something like tax fraud, insurance fraud. Just a plain vanilla criminal case that hundreds of people have been prosecuted in the past, and I bet New York gets there with them.
Yeah. Oh, good. Finally, a legal droid I'm looking for. Okay. No, but you bring up the court. I know isn't it the tragedy long term, like legally, Matt, is that not just the Supreme Court, but I wanted to get your take on this federal court that ruled to vacate a nationwide moratorium on evictions, which was put in place to protect renters during the pandemic. Of course, it's a Trump-appointed judge who overturned the CDC's ban on evictions, a victory for landlords. And obviously housing advocates are urging the DOJ to appeal the decision. What do you think?
Let me say one thing. So one thing that Trump got right, that everyone on my side of the aisle, especially legal eagles, don't like to pretend. Trump would talk about Trump judges and Obama judges, and you'd hear people say, "Oh no, federal judges." Look, federal judges, for the most part, are as polarized as the rest of our country right now. You do have judges who act like they're on the red team or the blue team.
Yep.
And I wish that weren't true, but pretending that it's not true isn't going to change it. Isn't going to change it.
Yeah.
I think you can, if you are on the right today, you can sue the Biden administration with the most fanciful legal theories possible and find a federal judge who will agree with you and strike down an executive order. And that's going to be true about any kind of progressive laws we manage to pass too. People go back and forget the Obamacare case challenge that we won 5-4 with John Roberts. People thought when that case was first filed was crazy. It was the craziest legal theory imagined. No judge will agree with that. And they got 4 justices on the Supreme Court. And that was before they had Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
It is I think the biggest long-term challenge that progressives face.
Yeah. Well, we should expand the court. Okay. Expand the court.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Yes.
It's the only way out.
I just sneezed. Oh, what did you say? Listen, you finally you celebrated on Twitter. You said fantastic news that Facebook will now be free of racism and conspiracy theories. Is that snark, Matt Miller? Is that snark?
You can read it however you want. Another thing about Twitter, I love tweeting stuff like that, and then everyone's saying you need to use a sarcasm font because people don't get it, as if that's my fault.
They don't get it.
The best thing about snark the best thing about snark is the people that don't get it. Right?
Exactly. Yes.
And they think you're a child abuser because you can't wait to get away from your children. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's snark, for God's
Exactly.
sakes.
Exactly. I mean, look, obviously it's snark, and the bigger point is like, it's obviously getting rid of Trump anywhere we can get rid of him is great.
Thank
From
you.
Facebook, from Twitter, from our lives, from the presidency, but Trump, as much as he was an accelerant of a lot of the problems we face, is a symptom of them too.
Yeah.
And even though you get rid of Trump, the underlying disease is still raging out of control.
Well, as I was saying, conservatives in general use it for misinformation. I mean, talking about going back to the Mueller report, it's like, read all about how, Facebook helped Cambridge Analytica put all this misinformation out there.
I mean, look at the vaccine and disinformation that spreads on Twitter. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump or little to do with him. And it's out there and
he engaged in it.
Debating.
He was the head troll, though, and all that misinformation, hydroxychloroquine and UV light up your ass and God knows what else.
Right.
Yes.